Hi, everybody, and welcome to the final week of videos for PIO, week 12. We're going to talk about reunification. Many of us are on some path of reunification. Maybe we have already been reunited with our kids. Maybe we haven't been reunited with them yet. We haven't seen them yet. Maybe we will be. Maybe we are having sporadic visits or maybe even weekly visits, but they're only for an hour at a time, maybe supervised and not at home or in like a more comfortable setting where we are all where we feel just a little more like we're in our own home base. So no matter where we're at on the path of reunification, if we have been separated from our kids for some amount of time, this information is going to be relevant to you. It's really important that we consider ourselves, even if we've reunified, we're still working on rebuilding that bond and rebuilding that relationship. So we want to take a minute and acknowledge any victories. One big victory, huge victory, is if you are watching this video right now for week 12, that means that you are on the final week of Parenting Inside Out virtual online style. So that is a huge victory, and I'm so proud of all of us for getting through this online class together. Thank you for being here, and give yourself a huge round of applause. You may also have other victories that you're wanting to celebrate as well. Take a moment and acknowledge those. So we need to have 12 learning goals completed by the end of this week. So if you have not yet made 12 learning goals, please make sure that you are catching up with whatever you are missing still at this point. If you need some learning goal ideas, you'll be able to get some here. So we want to start with, what are the takeaway messages? What are we trying to learn this week? So the two takeaway messages are: there are many challenges ahead when your children return home. One challenge is dealing with feelings of guilt. The second takeaway message is: overindulgence is a common response on the part of parents who feel guilty for behavior that caused their children to be removed from their care or from parenting well. Overindulgence may help parents with their guilt, at least temporarily, but it is not a response that is helpful for children. So if I wanted to write a learning goal today, one example I may write is: I would like to prepare myself for questions my child may have about our family dynamics or about why our family has changed. Another example learning goal could be: I want to know what overindulgence is or what it looks like. Another one could be: where am I at on my path of reunification? What does reunification look like for me and my family? Or maybe you have some other ideas. Any of those would be fine. So I want to tell you Larissa's story. Larissa was about to get out of prison. If all went well, she was going home in 1 week. She had been incarcerated and away from her children for a period of 18 months. Her children had come to visit her every few months. The visits had gone okay, but her mother, with whom the children lived, was always there during the visit and seemed to be the real parent who was in charge. Larissa understood why this was so, but it was hard for her. Larissa was excited, but also was very nervous about going home. Her plan was to move in with her mother and the children. She and her mother would then work together to parent the children until Larissa got on her feet. Larissa had meetings to go to, and she needed to look for a job. The scariest thing of all, though, was trying to take everything she had learned about parenting and apply it once she got home. That thought made her very nervous and a little depressed. When she was arrested, she had been using drugs heavily for almost a year. She hadn't been available for her children. She spent a lot of time away from the kids or locked up in her bedroom. Her mother finally ended up taking the children back to her home so that they would be safe and cared for. A short while later, Larissa was arrested. She was in jail for quite a while after that, and later was convicted and incarcerated. Larissa had gotten some help in prison. She went through a drug treatment program and had really worked hard in parenting class. Now she was clean, and she had learned so much about her children's needs and her job as a parent. She was happy about this, but she now felt guiltier than ever. She knew she had put her children in dangerous situations. She knew she hadn't been there for them for the 18 months she was incarcerated. She loved her children deeply and wanted to make it up to them. She wanted to be the best parent she could. As she thought about this, she began to think of what she could do for them once she got home. Larissa thought to herself, "I'll become their best friend. I won't make them do too many chores. I won't discipline them. I'll just work on bonding with them. I'll help them with their homework and do all I can to save them from consequences, so they won't feel any more pain. I don't ever want them to hurt or be uncomfortable again. I owe it to them. Yes, that will do it. I'll make it up to them." As Larissa formed this plan in her mind, she began to relax. As she got ready for bed, she marked another day off her calendar. 5 more days until I go home. I have a plan. When I get there and make it all up to them, everything will be perfect. She climbed into bed, sighed a deep sigh of relief, and drifted off to sleep. So I want you to think to yourself, what is your reaction to this story? Are Larissa's decisions ones that will help her children? What do you think of Larissa's plan to offer friendship but no structure or guidance? Whose need is she really meeting? Do you think her plan will work to make the children feel better? You may be facing a similar situation with similar feelings. You love your children deeply and want to make things right with them. So what is your parent job in this situation? What should you do to help your children? This is what we're going to talk about today. One typical response is to try to be your child's friend and then drop the more difficult parts of parenting. A word that we will use today to describe this situation is overindulgence, which means trying to be your child's friend and giving them things, but not providing structure, guidance, or discipline. The difficulty with this type of response is that overindulgence may help you as the parent feel better, at least for a while, but it's incompatible with you doing your parents' jobs. It's not a good way to meet your child's needs. Overindulgence is common when parents deeply love their children and want to make things right with them. Overindulgence occurs when parents focus on trying to be their child's friends and giving them things but not providing structure, guidance, or discipline. This is a really, really important concept that we as parents need to understand. We have to understand that when we are trying to step into that friendship role with our children, it's really doing them a major, major disservice. You see, as parents, we cannot be our children's friends. Friends are peers, which means that there is not a power imbalance there. There's not supposed to be a structural power imbalance. Between parents and children, there is a structural power imbalance. So one thing that I often will say to parents that believe that being a friend to their child is healthy is I will say, would it be appropriate for your child's friend to discipline your child when they fail to meet an obligation or fail to meet an expectation? Most, if not all, parents would say, well, of course it's not appropriate for the child's friend to dole out discipline or provide that structure or decide what the child can or can't do. That's what the parent's job is. And that right there is exactly why we as parents cannot be friends to our children. It's our responsibility and obligation to provide the things that our children need. It is not their peers' responsibility or obligation. So when we confuse in our children's heads what is an appropriate peer relationship and what is not, we're setting them up to find themselves in an abusive relationship later on in life, either as the victim or as the perpetrator. We have to recognize that there are power differentials in different relationships, and a parent-child relationship has those power differentials. Peer relationships are not supposed to. And so we have to make it very clear in our minds why we can't be friends with our children. I think a lot of times when parents say that they are friends to their children, what they mean is we share these common hobbies, or we really love spending time together, or we laugh and laugh and laugh every time we are sharing this common activity, or anytime we're in the car together. You can do those things as a parent-child relationship. You should do those things. That's a bond that you should always be working on with your kids. But we want to be clear on defining that difference of we very much enjoy spending time together, instead of confusing the relationship dynamic by misnaming it as a friendship. So I want you to look in your yellow book for 12.1.1. I want you to read through the parenting challenges after reunification. And I want you to highlight or take notes on anything that stands out to you. Go ahead and pause the video while you do that. I'm going to continue forward. One way to deal with mistakes is to see them as learning opportunities, a chance to try again and to either make a better choice or to make restitution or prepare to not cause further harm. So we call this process the 4 A's of change. And this is what we want to, this is the skill set we want to apply when we are making a commitment to apologize, be accountable, and make a change for our children. So the first A is acknowledge. We want to acknowledge that you made some mistakes and what you did was harmful. One example of this could sound like, I made some poor choices and my children were taken from our home. Being removed from their home was painful and scary to my children. Now, sometimes during this step, parents may feel the need to share why these different things happened, especially as it pertains to being a victim of circumstance. And I am not discrediting that you may be a victim of circumstance in what led up to the child being removed from your home or whatever it is that you're apologizing for. I very much recognize that all of our situations, all of our lives are complicated and there's many variables at play. However, it's not for our children to carry that emotional load of sorting through how our parent is a victim of circumstance or how they are not, especially as they are children. If I am wanting to authentically go through these 4 A's of change, I need to commit to not using this time as the space to seek validation for these circumstances that happen to me. And I also need to commit to not making my kids have to be the person that gives me validation. It doesn't mean that your feelings of what happened aren't valid. They absolutely are valid. But the people that you need to seek out to get that validation from are your peers, your mentors, your professional supports. It's not an emotional load for your children to carry. If I am acknowledging my accountability in something, I cannot insert how it's a blame on somebody else or how I was a victim of circumstance in this dialogue, because it absolutely nullifies that acknowledgement of accountability. So I can acknowledge that I've made mistakes or that these choices or that this thing happened and it made you feel this way without using this as an opportunity to seek validation for myself. This is about validating with our kids. I need to admit my mistakes to the person that I harmed. One example of this could sound like, I made some poor mistakes, some poor choices, and you were taken away because of it. I know you have a lot of feelings about what happened. I can imagine you felt scared and lonely and afraid we wouldn't ever be a family again. Maybe you even feel angry with me for what happened. You can tell me your feelings. All of your feelings are okay, even the mad and sad feelings. You probably need some time to get used to having us all together again. Take your time. I'm here and I love you. Again, these are very, very important concepts for us to be practicing and not be seeking this as an opportunity to find validation for ourselves. Whatever our child's reality is, whatever their truth is, that is their truth. And it's not for us, especially when we are trying to navigate this reunification piece and trying to heal those wounds and trying to move forward. This is not an opportunity for us to seek validation for ourselves. Again, we need to be seeking that from our peers and our mentors, not from our children where there's this power imbalance and I'm the one that has the more power. If I use my children as a place to seek that validation, I am misusing my power over them. And I'm making it so that they can't safely and truly navigate through their feelings. Maybe I don't feel that they should feel angry. I need to keep that to myself. Feelings are something that I don't have control over what I feel. This is what I feel. And if I invalidate that, it's just going to shove it deeper into that bottle. In order to move forward is we have to walk through that feeling. We have to experience it and acknowledge it and validate that that feeling exists. And our kids who are navigating these very complex feelings without a lot of experience in life and wisdom in how to navigate them, they especially need a lot of support that allows them to navigate those feelings, navigate through them. My child may not know the whole story, may not understand all of the different pieces, and that's okay. They don't need to. It's not their job to. It's their job to feel safe and secure in feeling their feelings and learning safe ways in which to express and talk about them. I also recognize that hearing this from your kids may be very, very painful for you. And it's important that you recognize that with yourself as you enter into these conversations and do what you need to do to feel prepared. Maybe you need to talk with someone, a peer or a mentor of yours that you trust before you walk through these conversations with your kids. It's really, really important that they are given, that you are given the opportunity to also walk through your feelings. But it's important that we figure out who are the appropriate people to support us in that. The next step is to apologize with details. One example of this could be, I'm sorry I made poor choices that caused you to end up in foster care. You deserve to have a mom or dad at home taking care of you. And then finally, we want to act. Act does not mean overindulge. Let's look at some ways to act that will help heal the hurt our children feel. So if you open your yellow book to 12.1.4, you're going to read through some alternatives to indulgence for each developmental stage. You can highlight some that may be appropriate for your child. So I'm going to skip down to this third one. And the example of overindulgence in this third one is, every time Charlie says no, the adults give in. Charlie gets what he wants and more than he asks for. So if that is the practice in Charlie's life, a decision this child may make is, I am the center of the universe. I can have whatever I want. I don't have to consider other people. Some examples of what a more helpful parenting strategy could be is, sometimes Charlie gets what he wants and sometimes he doesn't. Adults carry this out in a matter-of-fact way with no criticism. Adults expect Charlie to follow simple commands: come, stop, go, wait. And then under this helpful parenting tip, something that a decision a child may make is, I have to take others' needs into account. I can say no and be angry and still be loved. I can learn to follow directions. Like we had talked about earlier in the in the learning objectives, is that indulgence, we trick ourselves into thinking that it's what's best for children and that it's really we're really being helpful. and serving their needs. But the needs that we're actually serving are our own. Indulgence is a way for me to alleviate my guilt. However, it is not preparing my child for what skills they need to have in order to navigate through the world properly. If little Charlie is parented in this overindulging way all the way until he starts school, and he believes that he's the center of the universe and can have whatever he wants, and he doesn't have to consider other people, what's going to happen when he starts kindergarten, entering with that worldview? And now when he enters with that worldview, and he's one of 25 kids in this kindergarten class, is the universe still going to revolve around him? Is he still going to be the center of it? And is it going to be okay for him to operate as if he doesn't have to consider the feelings and needs of others? Absolutely not. And what are the consequences of that going to be for Charlie? Well, he's probably going to face discipline and punishment. He's probably going to be confused as to why he's the center of the universe everywhere else, but then not at school. And how do you think that's going to make Charlie feel? It's probably going to be frustrated, mad, sad, feeling like his teacher or whatever staff at the school, that he's going to feel that they're personally wronging him. He's not going to like school and not want to be there. Gosh, we're really setting up Charlie to not be super successful in school from the very beginning. And that's why that overindulgence piece is so important that we recognize and understand. And we ask ourselves, whose needs are we fulfilling when we overindulge our children? And the answer is always our own. I think it's important that we understand that parents do this with the best of intentions. They're not trying to serve their own needs of guilt. They don't even know that they're doing that. And I think that we're all guilty of doing it sometimes. Sometimes I am overwhelmed or stressed and I make a different parenting choice than I typically would because I just need the crying in the store to stop. I'm so frustrated. I don't know what else to do. I have all these other things on my mind, and maybe I give into the tantrum and give that bag of M&Ms, even though that's not something that I would have usually done. I'm human. I make mistakes. I have feelings. I have my own situations or problems going on in my head. And sometimes I may make a choice like that. Doesn't mean I'm an awful parent, but it's important that I reflect on the choices I make and I recognize those choices and I make a different plan for in the future. So if I overindulged with those M&Ms in the store today, I need to recognize that that's probably going to happen the next time I'm in the store with kiddo. And they're probably going to use those same skills that they used last time in order to get that packet of M&Ms. Because I taught them that. I taught them that when they do this, it's going to equal this. And so what I need to do is I need to anticipate that and make a different plan. So that plan could mean a lot of different things. It could be that maybe I share my expectations with my child before we go into the store by saying something like, today we are going into the store and we are just picking up Ritz crackers and then we're going to go. We're not going to be able to get candy today. I could try doing that. I could try having some fruit snacks or, an apple or something that they can munch on as a snack instead. I can use M&Ms as a reward that they're earning of Today we're going to practice being big kindergartners while we're in the store, and big kindergartners, they don't throw fits. And so if you don't throw a fit, or if we get through this store trip with happy faces and good listening ears, then we can have some M&Ms in the park after we're done with the store. I could not have kiddos come into the store. I can do all, these are just a few ideas that I've come up with just kind of on the spot. We can do all sorts of different modifications to our environment in order to anticipate the behaviors that we experienced a little while before. It's not going to be helpful for me to indulge that time and not prepare to re-encounter that same problematic behavior again. I have to recognize that it's going to maybe be harder for a little while before it gets better. But it can get better, it will get better, and I just really encourage you to try to ignore the glares and judgmental looks of strangers in the store that have no idea what you have experienced up until that point, or what is causing this. I know it can be hard, but please don't be swayed by the glaring looks of other people around you. It's none of their business. And also maybe we can all practice that too when we are seeing someone struggling out in public as well. We don't know what has led up to this, and often a smile or nod can give a little bit of relief to another human that's struggling. So this may be the toughest alternative to overindulging, and it's answering questions with truthfulness and honesty. Your children may ask you some very difficult questions when you get home. I've put some of them up here. I'm going to go ahead and read through some of these questions. Some questions a child may ask is, why did you want drugs more than you wanted me? Why did you let yourself be hurt by your partner? Why did you let your partner hurt me? Are you bad because we were taken from you? Am I bad because I was taken from you? Are we going to be taken away again? Are you going to use drugs again? There may be other difficult questions that your children may ask. I don't have the answers to these questions. Only you can answer these questions. Your job is to face the reality that these questions might come up. Your job is to take everything you have learned in this class and use that information to answer these questions. You will need to think about your values, your beliefs, and your family's identity. You will need to think about what your children can handle at different stages of development. You will need to think about your child's individual temperament and how to best deliver an answer to each of your children, taking into consideration each child's unique personality. Your job is to be prepared. Talking your answers over with others may help you clarify what you believe and how you want to communicate that to your children. Use all the handouts from this course to come up with some answers. Use the communication models, the 4 A's of change model, emotional honesty, I statements, and information about your children, such as their developmental stage and temperament. I want you to take some time to think through and plan some of the responses for tough questions. I want you to open your purple book handout to 12.1.5. And I want you to choose 2 questions that we've discussed or come up with some on your own and brainstorm possible solutions and responses to those questions. Children can ask some very tough questions. Pick 2 difficult questions. We brainstormed and write an answer. We brainstormed and write an answer you could give to your children. So I wrote down 2 things that I thought could be relevant. Question 1 was, why did you want drugs more than you wanted me? And I just kind of started brainstorming. I'm not feeling solid on these answers just yet, but I may say something like, I have an addiction. Addiction is stronger than any other feeling I've ever known in my entire life. My addiction made me sick, and I had to go away to get help with my sickness and to get better. And question 2 is, are you bad because we were taken away from you? Some other brainstorm ideas I came up with was, I'm not bad. I was sick and needed help. Maybe I also want to add, people aren't good or bad. People have strengths and weaknesses. My addiction was very powerful, and I didn't know how to be stronger than the addiction. So again, these are just some answers I brainstormed that are going to help me form these answers to these questions. The way I answer these questions is going to change depending on age and child development. And I may never come up with an answer that feels perfect, but the more thought I put into it and the more I prepare myself for this, the better prepared I'm going to be to answer it when it comes up. And with that is the end of our time together. So I just want to thank you for being here, coming and participating and exploring more about your parental identity. I wish you farewell and goodbye, and take care.